Welcome back, guys. It's craft time. In today's video, we are going to be making some Dollar Tree horror babies. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm just going to be picking up some of the Dollar Tree little baby dolls and turning it into something else. Now, in the past, I have done an It doll, and I've also done Hocus Pocus themed dolls from the little Barbie dolls from Dollar Tree, and I've gotten a lot of requests for another video, and though I know I've gotten requests for certain characters, I really like to do things just off the top of my head sometimes, and I'm really leaning into the sheet ghost trend. They are rearing their heads again this year and very, very popular. So I wanted to take those two things, smash them together, and see what we can come up with. So grab your dolls and let's start in with some paint. I have two here. One you'll see is already painted. I had spray painted that last year to go ahead and work on it. Never did, threw it in a box, so it does need some touch up, and I'm going to go in with some white chalk paint this time. On my Hocus Pocus dolls, I used a lot of acrylic paint. On the It doll, I used spray paint, so honestly, grab whatever paint you have available and jump into it. Now, I'm using chalk paint because the coverage is going to be really good, and chalk paint sticks to pretty much any surface. If you're using acrylic paint, you're going to have to do several more coats to get the same coverage that I'm getting here, but that's okay. I will say, though, this is a Dollar Tree video and almost everything you see me use you can get from Dollar Tree. Do not try to use their paint. It is a waste of your money. Just go to Walmart, pick up their little 50-cent apple barrel bottles of paint. The quality is 10 times better and it's cheaper. So I'm going to just throw that out there. I have used the Dollar Tree paint just to make sure that what I'm telling you is true, and it's basically super watered down and not worth your time. So anyway, I'm going to do 2 coats of the white chalk paint on here, and then I'm going to go in with their faces. Again, I am leaning into the sheet ghost trend. So on the first face, I'm going to just be working with some blacked out eyes and a black mouth, just like you would see the standard on any Halloween decor that you've ever seen that has a white ghost. So I'm just going to start in by painting the insides of the eye that are already there, and then I'm going to go outside just out below the lid a little and over the lid a little, just to expand that eye, make it a little bit more pronounced. And then I'm going to go in and paint the mouth and the lips black as well, just to kind of match the eyes. And then I'm going to work on baby number 2. The second one I want to make a little more in detail. So I'm going to go in with some red acrylic paint, and I'm going to do red eyes on this one. And I'm going to be really heavy on that paint, and I'm going to add several drops of that red paint into it to allow it to drip out of the eye. I want it to kind of look like it's running down, kind of like a bloody scene. And I'm going to just do that, like I said, by adding some excess red to it and just kind of tapping the baby and letting that fall naturally, and then using my paintbrush to kind of move it around as needed. And while that's drying, I'm going to start in on its mouth. Now I do want to do a black mouth on this one too. The mouth is slightly different in its orientation than the other baby. This one is meant to be smiling. So I'm just going to paint the entire mouth black, and then I'm going to add in some little sharp teeth. Now I'm going to be covering up their faces, but just in case, I'm going to go ahead and paint them fully. That way I know everything is covered if for some reason somebody ends up taking the sheet off, or I decide to cut a mouth out of these. Once those steps have been taken and I am happy with how their faces are looking, including some black pupils into those red eyes that I created, I'm going to seal these 2 babies up. Now you can seal them with some simple Mod Podge if you want. I also have polyacrylic. You just want to give it a whatever clear coat that you have available. That way you can seal them up and know that all of that hard work you just put into painting them is not just going to scrape off. I'm going to be using some Mod Podge that I have here. You can also find this at Dollar Tree, and I'm just going to give it a nice, even, decent coat, and then I'm going to let that dry thoroughly before we get started into the next steps. The next part is going to be the sheet that we're putting on top. Now, I'm just using some simple white tea towels that I have. They're very thin, partially see-through, but you can also pick up just the white cheesecloth from the Dollar Tree. I know that they have that. They also have the creepy cloth, which is black, and you can pick up either of those to use it for the same process. I'm going to be cutting off the edges of this towel and kind of sizing it down. I'm going to be ripping the towel down to size just to give it more of a frayed edge and like spooky look rather than just clean cuts from the scissors. And once I get those kind of down to where I want them, I'm laying them out, setting my babies up the way I want them, because however your babies are sitting, once you put the cloth over it, that's how it's gonna stay. So I am just gonna kind of play with this, get an idea of what I want it to look like, make sure my babies, the way that they're sitting, can self-sustain so they can sit on their own. I want both of their hands peeking out from underneath the sheet. And then I'm going to get it all kind of laid out where I want it, and I'm going to cut eye holes out of both sheets. So for the one, I want it to be more, a little more rough and rugged. So I'm just going to cut slits and rip it a bit. And then the other one that's more of an original sheet ghost, I want that one to be more billowy. So that cloth is going to be bigger. And I'm just going to work on these eye holes until I get them to be the size that I want. I'm just going to keep placing it back on. I want to be able to fully see both eyes through the sheet itself. So I'm just going to cut those until I am happy with that. And then I did decide not to cut the mouth out, but you can kind of see the mouth through it. If you use a cheesecloth, you will be able to see straight through it. So just know that, you do want to make sure you take care of your faces. And you might need to double up your cheesecloth to get it a little more coverage if it's a little more see-through than you want. In order to make this cloth stiff, I'm going to be using some Elmer's glue and water. You don't need anything fancy for this. You don't have to go out and buy something specific for fabric. You can just pull out some Mod Podge or some Elmer's glue or whatever craft glue you have like that, that's similar, and some water, and you want to do equal parts. So if you measure it and you do a half cup of glue, you need a half cup of water. If you're like me and you're just eyeballing it and you're not quite sure, just make sure you're a little heavier on the glue rather than the water if you want to just play it safe. Mix those together really well. You want to make sure it's all incorporated in, and then we're going to be dipping our sheet into there. I keep saying sheet because I'm referring to a sheet ghost. So I'm using a towel, you're using whatever cloth you have. I got some parchment paper out, and I also put it on a piece of cardboard so I could pick it up and move it out of my space. So that when I got ready for my next doll, and I could also move it off my desk to dry while I worked on other things. So if you don't care if it stays where it sits until it dries, that's fine, but maybe a portable surface like I have here. Again, it's a simple piece of cardboard with some parchment paper over top, but I strongly suggest the parchment paper because it'll keep it from sticking to it. And also if you make a mess, it's going to peel right off of there. So I'm going to start by dipping my tea towel or sheet or cloth into this mixture. I'm going to mix it around, push it down, open it, make sure every area of that cloth is saturated. Now, I'm going to clean it up, so I'm going to just wring it out. So I'm going to take my fingers and run it down lengthwise to get as much of that glue mixture off of it that I can and wring it out. You want it to be completely saturated, very saturated, but not dripping, because dripping is going to make a big old mess. So completely saturated every single inch, and then drape it back over your baby, and you want to just work with it until you get it to be the look that you want. So for both of them, again, I'm working it around their arms and making sure it's laying across their legs the way I want, the folds in the back. So for the, more scary one with all of those slits, I'm making sure each of those slits are uncrinkled and laid out the way I want, because however you lay it, that's how it's going to stay. For the more original sheet ghost, I'm going to be just kind of folding those edges under to give it that nice billowy, floaty type of image. And I'm just going to keep playing with it until I'm happy. I'm tucking you know, those parts up under the arms, folding them down over it, and just kind of creating some wrinkles, but making sure that it is nice and stuck to the head, because once it dries, it will stick. So once I get those in place and how I want them to be, we're going to leave them overnight to dry. Now I will say the more scary one, it dried overnight. It did great. It's really in really good shape because it had more room for air to get underneath it. And then the more original sheet ghost, because there is more fabric and it is kind of folded over itself, it did need additional time to dry. But I'm very happy with how that turned out. It stiffened up perfectly. It still has a tiny, tiny bit of movement to it, but you have to like physically move it yourself. And as long as you store it properly without smushing it, then it should hold its shape without issue for you. Now comes the fun part where we can decorate these up. Now that I have the all dry and ready to go, for the scarier one, I'm going to be taking a popsicle stick and I'm going to be carving out a little knife for it. And I'm just going to be doing that with a box cutter or Exacto knife. I'm going to draw out what I want it to look like, and very carefully on my cutting mat, which is also from the Dollar Tree, cut that out and then use a little sanding block to sand away those rough edges. I don't want it to actually be pointy or splintery, so I'm going to sand it down to where it looks good, and then I'm going to paint it up. And I'm using some silver metallic paint and some black paint to kind of give it that original like kitchen knife look. And then from there, I'm going to let it dry and work on the pumpkin for the original ghost. Now, I picked up this little leather pumpkin from Dollar Tree last year. I really like the texture and material on it, but I don't like the color, so I'm going to paint it up with some orange chalk paint. And then I'm going to let it dry and seal it in as well. I'm going to take this little spider and glue that on there, and I'm going to hot glue the knife and the pumpkin and spider to their perspective ghost, and I am all done with these. I am super obsessed with how these turned out. Again, this is just something that I thought of and really wanted to give a try. So please let me know what you guys think about them in the comments below and which one of them is your favorite. Now, I am going to say, I know I've gotten a lot of requests for certain characters, so I'm going to throw it out there. We'll have a poll. I'm willing to do a Beetlejuice, or I'm willing to do a Freddy, and whichever one gets the most votes in the comments. So just leave your favorite ghost from the video and then which character you would like to see next in the comments below. And then you can also add an additional character if you really want to see it. And if I get enough of the same character that aren't two from what I just suggested, then I will also consider doing that. Give me a thumbs up if you enjoyed this video. Check out my It dolls and my Hocus Pocus dolls. I really appreciate you being here. Consider subscribing, and I'll see you next time.